Could be, I guess.
I wouldn't mind getting
Yeah. I can come up with something. I'd like to call this meeting of the Whitfield County Board of Commissioners to order for the 11th of September, 2023. Please silent or mute your cell phone. All that are able, please stand for our invocation, followed by the pledge.
Mr. Chairman, before the invocation, I'm going to ask for a moment of silence in memory of Bobby Dixon, former coroner for 24 years here in Whitfield County, and also remember the victims of 9/11. So please, a moment of silence before the invocation. Our most gracious and heavenly Father, thank you for all the blessings that you have bestowed upon us. Dear and Father, we call now the family and friends of Bobby Dixon, a grateful employee of Whitfield County and serving as coroner, dear and Father, and her pledge to this county. Dear and Father, we just pray for comfort for the family of Bobby Dixon, and also we call into remembrance the 22nd anniversary of 9/11, dear and Father, and the tragedy that was taken then. Dear and Father, we just pray that you'll be with those families in a special way, as they're always constantly reminded of that loss. Now, for Whitfield County, we do pray for your guidance, dear and Father, as we serve on this board. Dear and Father, we just live in a great place, and we just thank you for it and acknowledge your great gift to this county. And we ask that you'll be with us as we deliberate tonight. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May the record reflect we have 4 commissioners present. Commissioner Staton is out of town, but that does meet our quorum requirements. The commissioners were made aware of the agenda along with the public about 5 days ago. There are 2 additional items that were sent out, I think, on Friday, but we need to officially amend the agenda. One is a change order for our Sploss Bridge repair project, and one is a special use related zoning request. There was some research done, but we got the answers back on that, so that can be added to it along with the other zoning requests that are already on there. Any other changes or edits to the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Robbins to approve the amended agenda. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed, nay. Passes on a 3-0 vote. There are no new consent, or there are consent agenda items, just the regular budget amendment based on our purchase orders approved in the last meeting. There were 2 sets of minutes set out, one from our special called meeting and one from our regular August Board of Commissioners meeting. Did everyone get a chance to check the minutes? I think you had one addition, Commissioner Robbins. Was that made in time?
It was.
Okay. Is there any other edits or changes to the minutes that were sent out last week?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Robbins to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed, nay. Passes on a 3-0 vote. All right, we've got our Employee of the Month, Carter Thomas. Come forward with your supervisor from the Public Defender's Office. Nice to see you.
Great to be here, thank you.
Hi. Tell us a little bit about him.
Well, this is Carter Thomas. He is over Judge Morris's courtroom and domestic violence court and does an excellent job. He advocates for our clients in domestic violence court and oversees their participation in that accountability court, which is quite extensive. And we are grateful for his service thankful that he is still with us, and looking forward to many more years.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Don't get away that easy.
All right, there are no presentations tonight, but we do have a public hearing on alcohol beverage permits. There's 3 companies. The Roadrunners, let's see, the La Corita and Danny's Deals in Dalton, or the One Stop Mart in Dalton. I'll consider this public hearing open. Is there anyone who would like to step forward in favor of any of these 3 approvals? Anyone in opposition of these beverage approvals, permits? Going once? All right, I will close the public hearing on these. We did get back all of the, Blanca, all of the budget, or background checks, perfect. The only report I had is, as Commissioner Robbins mentioned, it is 9/11 today. You saw the flags out there. This is now called Patriots Day, in case you weren't aware. And I think it was important to remember that 22 years ago. And the number at the top are the number that were killed on that day. Of course, people have had injuries, especially the first responders that came to the scene even after that, if they survived the actual attack with different health issues and things like that from getting those people free. So it's great to remember that. Thank you. Other reports from the commissioners? Commissioner Jones? Commissioner Thomas? Any from you, Commissioner Robbins?
None.
All right, our county administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 3 items this month. The first is, as was mentioned last month, our county transit service is beginning the shift from rural to urban funding. That's a result of the fact that the U.S. Census Bureau has no longer considers, and hasn't, I think, for 20 years, Whitfield County to be a rural county, but actually an urban or suburban county. Additionally, our urbanized area has been expanding steadily as additional real estate development takes place. I tell the staff, be competent enough to know when you're incompetent. So I'm going to ask Jake Bearden to come up. Jake is our point man on the transition from rural to urban. He's been working heavily with our transit director, Diane Franklin, and Jake has basically been dealing with our congressional delegation and GDOT and making sure this gets done. I was afraid that this was going to be a very difficult process, but due to Jake's leadership and abilities, it's actually operating about as smoothly as it can with state and federal government. So Jake, if you want to fill in some of the details.
Yes, thank you, Bob and commissioners. You all should have a map in front of you of our Dalton Metropolitan Statistical Area. That's from the United States Census Bureau. That's available on the U.S. Census Bureau's website as well as our own. That is what they base their allocation of federal funds on, what's in the blue. Of course, our statistical area does expand over into Murray County as well as some in Catoosa. However, our transit funds do not leave Whitfield County. They're just part of that statistical area. They each have their own funds to pull from. So because of that, you'll see that that urbanized area is centered around the city of Dalton, as well as about 4 square miles around the perimeter of city of Dalton. And so the Federal Transit Administration has done an audit on most transit agencies in the state of Georgia to check to see where these funds are being allocated. And the majority of our trips either originate or end within that urbanized area. So because of that, they have told us that we have to start changing from the 5311 rural program to a 5307 urban program. Essentially, these funds will just replace one another. We will not be asking for any additional funds. It will not change the way our routes are ran. It essentially won't change anything about our transit system, just where the funds are being pulled from. The benefit of that is if a trip originates and ends within that blue area, it will be covered by the federal government, not our local taxpayer dollars. The 5311, of course, will not cover those trips that begin and end in that blue area. And so that's why we're transitioning to cover the majority of our trips, because that's where our doctor's offices, consumer shopping places are. That's where most of our transit riders are going.
I think that fits our themes of trying to get more grants and more money from outside of Whitfield County to help fund our services, so.
This will be more money.
Yes, and the benefit of that, I should mention, is that Diane have been on multiple conversations with our GDOT representatives, and in the past, maintenance was reimbursed at a rate of 50%, so it was a 50-50 match between county and the federal government. With the 5307, we now get 80% of that back, not 50, so we will be getting more money returned back to the taxpayer dollars by moving to this new grant.
Excellent.
Is that because of population or number of
It's,
trips? Or?
in our situation, it's more of a density, so in that city of Dalton and in that area, we've gotten a lot more dense within that area. Outside of that boundary, we've still remained rural, so we're referred to as a trending urban county or a suburban county, as Bob pointed out. But we've tried to promote infill within the city of Dalton and within that boundary, and because of that, our density has grown, making more of our trips fall within that area, and as well as the additional funding being made available to that area as well.
You're talking about within that blue area?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Again, that's our nursing homes, the hospitals, the doctor's office. Those make up the bulk of our trips, the
Seniors,
medical.
yeah.
Yes.
Seniors, I like that.
Yeah, we'll come pick you up.
So that's why we're doing the transition, just to make everything more smooth. And I got to give credit where it's due to Diane and her team. They're the ones that are on the ground that are going to have to be doing the dual reporting, as it's called at the federal level. And essentially, Diane and her team are going to have to keep everything separate between the two grants for about a year. And it's not easy work. It's very difficult and tedious, but she's been able to stay on top of it.
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask a question. Jake, for the citizens out there, particularly those who rely on public transit, when can they expect to see changes, and what sort of changes will they see?
As far as changes to what we offer, we will stay the same. It will still be the same fares, $4 each way, or you can buy a ticket book up front for $30. That's essentially a $1 discount for each ride. The biggest changes will come at a point when that blue area hits a population of 200,000. At that point, we will be considered a major statistical area. That will happen in the future. We don't know when, but sometime it will happen. And at that point, we will then have to begin looking at fixed route options. If you think of the Gainesville Hall County area, they recently just went over that threshold a few years ago, and so now they have to offer a more bus route conscious effort. So you think about bus stops, actual physical locations where you can catch a transit bus to go from destination to destination.
But right now, we still stick with the reservations.
Right now,
Call it
we
24 hours
will
ahead of time.
continue to be on-demand service. We ask for as much notice as possible, but we make every accommodation we can. And we see that as our future for transit, to continue that true on-demand service, because that's what our citizens have come to know, and that's what they seem to like the best.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Jake.
Very much.
Number 2 on the list is the Georgia Housing Access and Affordability Task Force. That was recently created, and it's a consortium of private and public stakeholders, such as the Association County Commissioners of Georgia, Georgia Association of Realtors, Georgia Chamber of Commerce, Georgia Municipal Association, the Home Builders Association of Georgia, and Habitat Humanity of Georgia. This group had its first meeting here in Dalton recently, and it was their first group meeting. Everybody in that group, that diverse group of stakeholders, all agree on certainly one thing, and that is Georgia is facing a severe housing shortage, as is true of the entire United States. And this is manifesting itself in some very disturbing ways. Anecdotally, I'm sure many of you have seen, we have an increase of homeless population here in Whitfield County and throughout the country. Traditionally, homeless population has been primarily people suffering from substance abuse or mental health issues. We are now seeing more and more people who are homeless because they simply can't afford to put a roof over their head. The most disturbing part is we're seeing an increasing percentage of citizens who are spending more than 50% of their disposable income on housing, whereas you all know that the rule of thumb was never to spend more than 30%. And for anybody who took a basic economics course knows that the reason why prices go up for a particular product is because there's a shortage. So essentially, the solution to the housing crisis, the housing shortage, is to build more housing. We've discussed a number of things. I was able to address this group at Dalton State. We discussed a number of things. The conflict between longtime homeowners who may not want further development because it may bring about change or perhaps what they would perceive as impede their quality of life, but also to decrease the value of their home because of the lessening of the shortage. But we also have to deal with young people who need to be first-time home buyers who are not able to get into the market because the rapid inflation of housing. And in particular, we have to deal with our employers, particularly here in Whitfield County, who are suffering a great deal in their ability to recruit and retain employees because they don't have a place for those folks to live. So we talked about a number of those things. The task force will continue to meet, and I was able to go ahead and report that in Whitfield County, we are making a great deal of progress. Here in Dalton, you see the apartment complex that's going up on Wall Street. You see new apartments coming online by the hospital. We see housing at Patterson Farms, soon to be at Camden Farms, housing of all sorts and types. And we also have to be conscious of the changing market for housing. The fact of the matter is demographics in the United States are changing. Household size is becoming smaller. People, as Jake alluded to, are living in a more dense environment than they did in the past, and that is affecting not only our transit but also our housing market. So all I can go ahead and say at this point is that as a private and public sector are getting together to address this problem, it's not a problem that's going to be solved overnight because it's not a problem that arose overnight, but I want people to be assured that we are working as hard as we can to make sure that people of Whitfield County have adequate housing and affordable housing. So, moving on to the third thing, I guess what I first want to do is explain a little bit about how this process works for my report. So the previous week before the meeting, I speak to the chairman and I give him a list of about, I don't know, 6 to 10 different topics that we can discuss or that I can discuss. Things that have happened over the previous month or things will happen the next month. And last week I told Chairman Jensen that the Battle of the Badges is something we can talk about, but only if Whitfield County wins. Whitfield County did not win, but as Chairman Jensen put it, the county didn't win, but the kids did win. So I guess I've gone ahead and, spoiler alert, I've already told you that Whitfield County Sheriff and the Fire Department lost to the Dalton first.
The rebel rousers.
The rebel rousers. We are investigating whether or not they have minor league ball
Ringers, I
players.
should
Yes,
say,
we're looking into that. We'll get back to you on that. But for the second year in a row, the city of Dalton went ahead and took home the championship trophy. But the most important thing is many thousands of dollars were raised for children's charities. Grace and Joy House, Chop with the Cop, and Special Olympics. So that's an effort that we put on with our partners in the city of Dalton. And I want to give a special shout out to Val Molina, who does the lion's share of the work of putting this together every year. And we thank her, and we thank our partners with the city of Dalton, even though they did win unfairly, for helping us in raising charity for the children of Whitfield County. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
One item I forgot to put on there, the SPLOST first committee meeting is September 21st, but I don't know is it at Edwards or where are we having it? Edwards Park. So that's all the cities and towns as well as the county representatives. That's the first meeting. That's the first time everybody could get together. So the 21st, what time? 6 p.m. at Edwards Park. All right, now we're ready for our finance report. You didn't talk Carol into taking this over for you? Dang it.
We're going to go to the School of Debbie, not Carol. So this is for the month of July. We collected, for year-to-date, we've collected $8.9 million in sales tax. Vehicle tax, we've collected $3.1 million. Year-to-date in revenues, we've collected 24.7, and year-to-date expenses, we have paid out 31.2 million, which is just a tad over what we paid out last year at the same time.
We got a little windfall from the Department of Revenue. I will get on my soapbox and say there is no transparency with the Department of Revenue. It did work in our favor this time, but we have no idea where it came from. Just like when they take money from us, they won't tell us where it goes.
And
So,
I didn't ask. We
no,
just
there's
deposited it.
no open records request with the Department of Revenue for us or for the citizens or anyone else. So it's very frustrating, but it was a nice little windfall we got last month, making up for money that they owed us from the last 8 or 9 months. So
Yes.
that'll be good.
So total revenue, year-to-date, we've collected $24.7 million in actual, which is $3.2 million greater than what we projected, which was the $21.5 million. Then this is also $2.7 million greater than what we collected over this time last year. Our total expenditures for this year, or for this month, year-to-date, are $31.2 million in actual, $31.1 million in projected, which that means the actual expenditures are just a tad over, at $100,000 over our projected.
I think we mentioned this last time, but our expenses are typically budgeted flat, but they come in higher in actual in the second half of the year because of raises, healthcare expenses, things like that, that don't hit on an even basis. So I do expect that to increase a little bit, but it's nice to have a little cushion for that. So don't be surprised if the expenses accelerate the last 4 or 5 months of the year. That's fairly normal.
That $3 million increase, is that part of that windfall you were referring to?
This is expenses on this page. Which page are you on?
I'm talking about the revenue, sorry.
For July, it was 500 and something thousand.
Yeah, it was
560?
almost 600,000.
Yeah, it was over 560,000 in.
Of the 3.1 million?
Yeah.
So our actual year-to-date versus budget, our revenue is, we are 3.2 million greater in revenue collections than the projected, which creates that 3.1 million surplus that we just talked about. And our unassigned fund balance as of July 31st was 26.3 million, but we expect it to be at 35.3 million at the end of the year after collecting all of our property tax. We also got a little bit extra in SPLOST too this month, same Department of Revenue. So through the end of July, we've collected $62.2 million in SPLOST, and we've spent $35.1 million, and we've already paid the debt service for the year of the $20 million. So it's all taken care of.
Any other questions for Ms. Godfrey? Is there a motion to approve the finance as reported? Motion by Commissioner Jones, is there a second? Second by Commissioner Robbins. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed, nay. Passes on a 3-0 vote. We have one, we mentioned the SPLOST a few minutes ago, meeting in a couple of weeks or a week from Thursday. They did appoint their final alternate, Debbie Pourquoi. So if we can, I guess, just have a motion to accept her as alternate. We don't really have to have one. Motion by Commissioner Robbins. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Jones. All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed, nay. Passes on 3-0 vote. So in case somebody's out, she can step in. This is our first chance for public comments on anything on the agenda tonight. Ideally, I was hoping to have the Board of Education's millage rate to go with ours, but that obviously is not on the agenda because they're not ready. Their last meeting is on Wednesday. So we'll have to have a special call meeting once we have their figures just to make it official and send it to the tax commissioner. But if somebody has feedback, if they're mad at us because we didn't raise rates or something, feel free to let us know. Or any other thing that's on the agenda, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to put that on there for this meeting. They're just not ready yet. Any public comments? All right, we'll move into the agenda. We had the alcohol beverage applications, the 3 parties there. Is there any discussion from the commissioners, or is there a motion to approve these 3 applications? Motion by Commissioner Jones. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Thomas. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed, nay. Passes on a 3-0 vote. We have one annexation from the city of Dalton. There was no mention of land use objection, and I believe the city is on 2 or 3 sides of this property already. Is there a motion to approve the city of Dalton annexation?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Thomas. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed, nay. Passes on a 3-0 vote. This is the first of our grants tonight. We talked earlier about the transit, but this is a part of the local assistance, the tribal Native American funds that we received, and we're recommending to use those funds to restore some other historical properties that we own, Prater's Mill. That probably won't do it all, but it'll be a start to continue stabilizing it, and then hopefully we can have a permanent solution. But there are some needs immediately at Prater's Mill that we can put this to use. Is there a motion to accept these funds and put towards the Prater's Mill?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Robbins. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Thomas. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed, nay. Passes on a 3-0 vote. Reconnecting, this is a grant that we plan to use in Cohutta. I think we applied maybe last year, but we keep applying until we win, so that doesn't, we don't win them all, but we do win a good percentage of them. This has varying amounts. It does require a match, but it depends on how many applicants and what they award us, but we're expecting to get approximately $100,000 with a $20,000 grant. This helps with streetscaping like sidewalks and dealing with the trains that go right through the middle of Cohutta Town Square. And so we hopefully we'll reapply and get it this time. Is there a motion to apply for this Connecting Neighborhoods for Cohutta?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Thomas. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Robbins. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed, nay. Passes on a 3-0 vote. We've had some changes in our finance department. I think we approved the signature card last month, but now we just need to remove former employee from the Bank of Ozark. So approval to update our access to Bank of Ozark finances. Motion by Commissioner Robbins. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed, nay. Passes on a 3-0 vote. We started a project exactly 2 years ago for $516,000, and it was part of our digital courthouse. We've gotten almost all of our records to the cloud for complete backup, access 24 hours a day, 7 days a week over the internet, any of our property records. This is the last tranche, 71 through 78 of property records, and that will complete the project. We need $12,000 approximately expanded on this project to complete it. A little important note, we've received almost $104,000 in credits back from the state, and we'll also get money back from this 7-year period, probably more than $12,000. So it's a pretty good investment, and this will complete our digital process of moving all our records. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Robbins. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Thomas. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed, nay. Passes on a 3-0 vote. This is there's 2 actual grants for transit. This is the first one on that new 5307 application. As he mentioned, there is a match, but any money that we get is money we don't have to spend, so we're already budgeted and have to run the transit, so this just reduces the amount from our budget. And it is 50% match, and also a small capital match too. Motion to apply for the 5307 grant.
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Thomas. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed, nay. Passes on a 3-0 vote. The second grant, I hope I have this right, Diane. This is for this year. That was for 2025. This is to finish up the current fiscal year, which I think has already started because it's on the state calendar. But this would apply $138,000 in capital and operating from the current fund. And these we do not have to match. So this is, I think, our last year we can apply for this, if I understand it. No?
We get that money, but it's
Perfect. Again, trying to supplement our transit costs that we're going to pay one way or the other, so.
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Robbins, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed, nay. Passes on a 3-0 vote. This is our parking deck that's right across the street over here. Now, there's no structural problem with our deck. I know the city of Dalton had to tear down one of their parking decks a year or so ago. But we have some superficial problems with the bricks that are coming loose. Of course, that could be a problem if you are underneath it when the brick falls or your car is underneath it. So it is a safety issue, but it's not a structural issue. But we want to fix those loose bricks. We've looked at several different solutions trying to fix those, and we finally got a couple of quotes from Multiplex for $57,428. Actually been looking at this for quite a while, trying to figure out the best way to resolve it and keep the appearance up as well, but mainly just keep those bricks from hurting anyone.
And I would note that the BoC allocated $75,000 for this last year,
Yeah,
so.
like I said, we've been working on this for a while, so came in a little under what we expected after we got a few different quotes and looked at a couple different options. So we already have that money in our capital that we rolled over, did not spend last year, so just to adjust the amount to $57,428 and approve the multiplex vendor.
Make a motion.
Motion by Commissioner Jones, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Robbins. Is there further discussion?
Yeah, it says that it make emergency repairs, but it's going to be a permanent solution, right? I mean, is there something that has to be done further, or?
I think he told me he wanted to inspect it on an annual basis. We need to continue inspecting it to make sure, but yeah.
Mr. Benson's overseeing this.
So the word emergency is from the purchasing aspect.
Okay,
It does need to be done as soon as possible to reduce the potential for any kind of a falling object that might damage something. So rather than going through the normal procurement process, the administrator did declare it an emergency purchase.
okay. Well, it's only been going on about 2 years, so I didn't satisfy that emergency. I mean, it seems like we missed the boat here or something.
It has risen to that level, yes.
Okay,
You're going to inspect it put that on an annual basis
Yes,
in case
absolutely.
there needs to be remediated in the future, but hopefully this will solve it.
And I would note that's not the first work that we've done on this. I know, Ken, if you could walk us through, we went ahead and made some changes to stop further degradation of the deck.
We
So if you-
did. Our building and grounds crews got new roofs installed on the four corners where the elevators and the stairwells are, which they were allowing water to get behind the brick. There is additional work that needs to be done, caulking between the precast members, the caps on each level needs to be done. We are searching for a contractor who's willing to do that work. We have not found one yet.
so that's in addition to the 57,000,
It will be.
but, okay.
Hopefully less than the 75, but yeah.
Greg, you probably, any,
I mean, we gotta fix it.
yeah,
Yeah, don't want anybody getting hurt.
had to fix it, yeah.
And it's.
Are they gonna
like I
do
say,
all the
it's still
bricks?
structurally sound. It's just.
Yeah.
Just a.
Are they going to replace all the brick?
No, sir, just the
loose ones,
damaged brick.
The damaged
Okay.
and loose, yeah.
And create no problems for what's on there?
Correct, right.
Yeah, they're going to check them all, I think,
The-
as
the
part of this
is-
process, and then we'll have to check them going forward. to
Right,
make
so the
sure.
structure itself is a precast concrete structure, and that bears all the weight. The brick is just cosmetic, but when it was constructed, there's supposed to be a soft joint at the top of the brick between it and the precast, so if the precast moves even a fraction of an inch, it'll crack brick if you don't have that soft joint, and they didn't put a soft joint, they put a hard joint. So the brick has cracked in various places, but
Then water gets behind it
And
and
then
it freezes.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause the
so
problem.
the contractor has made this repair on several decks in the Atlanta area, all of the same vintage, late 90s, early 2000s decks that were built with the same type of construction. So they're very confident in the repair
That was my last
lasting.
question. You vetted this contractor?
They're actually the contractor who did this portion of the courthouse renovation.
Okay,
And they had some brick work on the Sally Port side. They matched that brick very well. They did a good job. We feel confident that they'll do a good job for us.
great.
Any other discussion or questions for? All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed, nay. Passes on a 3-0 vote.
Thanks, Ken.
We've got a memo of understanding between our fire department and the local technical college, Northwest Georgia Technical College, right there on the bypass. So we're going to do joint training, both training new and current employees, and I think that's going to benefit students and our fire department ultimately have better access to qualified workers. I don't think that costs us anything other than just our time and partnership. Is there a motion to approve the memo of understanding between the fire department and the North Georgia Technical College?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Thomas. All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed, nay. Passes on a 3-0 vote. We do have another slight emergency. Our backup generator at the detention center, known as the jail, has failed, or at least the transfer equipment. You want to tell us a little bit about that, Captain?
Yeah, just, right now, the generator itself functions correctly. It's still going through the, test that we have, designated every Friday around 9 a.m. But the transfer, the switch control, so that if we have an emergency loss of power, we'll automatically cut on that system, isn't functioning correctly. So this doesn't happen very often, but because just the nature of the world, either a bad storm, someone hits a pole at the bottom of the hill, we need to be able to open doors, we need to be able to have functioning lights in the building, and we need to be able to run under that emergency power. So the only way that we have to do that now with that switch down is that someone would have to go in there manually, go through a manual process, and this thing's got like 600 amps running into it. So we don't want employees going through this manual process. The other issue would be if we had a failure. You know, a lot of these failures happen at night. You know, we have a storm, we have somebody have a wreck, and we would have to call someone from off campus, one of the maintenance personnel, and I've confirmed they've all been trained on these safety procedures. They would have to come in, they'd have to go through this 3-part process, one of which involves putting like a steel pole in there and flipping a switch. So we don't want hands in that thing if we can avoid it. So the question isn't whether or not we can do the repairs, because as soon as this happened, it was an emergency issue, and Bob was good enough to work with us very quickly to determine that that procedure needs to go ahead and go forward, the purchasing. We were able to get 3 quotes, and we did go with the lowest quote, which is actually someone that the maintenance personnel were actually very comfortable with. That's kind of the one they were leaning toward anyway. So what we're just asking is whether or not we can use emergency funds instead of the regular funds from our detention budget to take care of that. We had an issue like this actually that was bigger than this earlier in the year, but what we did is we went ahead and took it out of our budget. We had about a $30,000 hit when one of our large air conditioning systems went down. At that point, we were like, look, let's try to manage it within our own budget, you know, instead of going outside. We took a pretty good hit on that, so we're just trying to avoid the second one, so.
Capital expense?
A repair is usually not capital, I don't think. But we can use it from contingency or emergency funds, like you mentioned. Any other questions for the captain? Is there a motion to approve standby service solution 16283 for emergency repair out of the contingency budget? Motion by Commissioner Jones. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Robbins. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed, nay. Passes on a 3-0 vote. Thank you. All right, we've got the three zonings on this one and 2 on that slide. One of these is approved, the very first one, with a condition that there be no animals such as poultry or wine breeding or feeding on the swine. Pigs. No pig's ears on this property. The second one was denied. The third, fourth, and fifth were all approved. Do you want to guys take these individually, or were there concerns about these? Like I said, I know there was, on B, there were several people that spoke out on Sam Love Road against that duplex in the middle of a subdivision. I don't remember any much discussion on the rest of them other than the first one, like I mentioned earlier. Oops.
Make a motion, we take them all at the recommendation of the planning commission.
Motion by Commissioner Jones to take the Planning Commission's conditions and approvals or denials as they are stated here.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Robbins. Any further discussion? Concerns? All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed, nay. Passes on a 3-0 vote. The city of Varnell is looking at paving and/or patching Cemetery Road in Varnell. We are looking at helping them and reimbursing them, but we want to wait for them to finish their voting process. So there was a consideration to postpone this one until next month or until they vote. So is there any concerns with that, or is there a motion to postpone this one for a later date?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Thomas. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones to postpone. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed, nay. Passes on a 3-0 vote. This is an additional item we just added tonight. We're trying to finish up all our major projects off the 2020 SPLOST. We've got 1 year left on that process. And one of the big items outstanding is the 5 bridges that need to be remediated, not only for additional lifespan, but so they can meet the new weight requirements. The state recently expanded the weights of trucks throughout the state. And also some erosion and other things were found when they started repairing these 5 bridges. So the total value is of the change order is $532,000. We are going to do some of that work in-house, so the net, I think, will be less than that, maybe $437, but the official change order will say $532. But we're going to try and do some more of that in-house, like the striping and stuff that we can normally do to offset some of that increase. But due to the increased scope and trying to get these bridges completely remediated for decades to come, hopefully.
I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Jones to approve the change order. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Robbins. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed, nay.
Do have a question. Is
That's
that,
on a 3-0 vote, but yes.
is there a time frame on that?
That's a good point. The goal is, of course, we want to finish before the SPLOST is out for sure, but their best estimate, I think, is the end of the year, but let's see what Kent says. I'm not sure we buy that, but that's the goal.
Well, the estimate by E&D was they would be able to finish by the end of the year, but I got an email from them Friday. Their major subcontractor on this work can't start till October 25th. So it's doubtful that we will finish before the end of the year, probably more like early February.
Okay.
That's my estimate, is early February.
Good update. Our second, I mentioned, was a special use permit that we added. This was related to the family personal care, which is allowed for 6 or less individuals. They had requested originally in their paperwork to have a group personal care, which is 6 or more than 6, I should say. And that special use was denied, but they are already permitted and allowed to have 6 or less. And that's what they stated during the meeting, that they did not want to exceed 6 at any time anyway. So they are going to stay with a family personal care. So our motion is to deny their request, which was what they officially asked for.
But they can do what they wanted to do.
They can do what they wanted to do without any additional approval from us whatsoever. So
Okay.
we're not helping or hurting them. They can do it as is. That was what took a little extra research to make sure that's what they wanted, and they are okay with us denying it.
The denial does not help or hurt.
That's right.
It
Because they
denies-
can do what they told us verbally they wanted
Your
to do.
question was?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I know there was concerns about the traffic and emergency services in there and stuff like that, so
But they didn't really have to ask.
they didn't have to ask, in other words. And that zoning allows for under 6.
That zoning's R5, is that right? G? Yes, sir. Okay.
I make a motion to deny the group personal care home.
Motion to deny the special use group personal care by Commissioner Jones. Is there a second? second by Commissioner Robbins to deny. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed? None. Denial passes. All right, we're ready for public comments on any item outside of the agenda. Any public comments? Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Commissioner Jones,